Hey guys, welcome back to Andy's Dinosaur Reviews, and today we are back with something that is very interesting. We have another new Takara Tomy release, and if you can recall, a little ways back I reviewed two figures from them. One was a T-Rex, one was a Triceratops. They were created in a much larger scale compared to what you normally get from Takara Tomy, and they were also kind of like a Mattel Jurassic World style figure, where it's basically just like an action figure. And we have another one that has recently released, but this one might somehow be the worst of all. This is the Pteranodon. I do have to give a shout out and a thank you to my good friend Dino Mike Mac, who actually was kind enough to find this one for me and hook me up with it. But I will say, as a whole, this line hasn't been so great, and this is another prime example of why this line is pretty bad. I think they really need to work on, at the very least, the overall texturing and sculpting of their figures and how it actually translates to the figures themselves, because a lot of the figures, I think the detail hasn't been that great. This one almost is like non-existent when it comes to the detail. The other thing I think they need to work out is probably like the proportions and stuff like that, because the proportions of like the Triceratops and the T-Rex specifically were pretty rough. Of course, we don't know for sure if that's the same case with the Pteranodon yet, but you can see the box is pretty much the same as what we had seen for the Rex and Triceratops. We've got like actually kind of like a very Jurassic World, Mattel style box here, where we have an open area for the Pteranodon kind of just hanging out, and you can see some information and stuff on the box. And then if you turn it around, you can see an image here on the back showing the Pteranodon. It actually doesn't look too bad right there, but just very muted when it comes to the detail. But also some more images and stuff over here and everything, and kind of showing off some of the, I guess, yes, action features and stuff, as we have like a wing flapping action feature going on there. But I'm pretty intrigued to get a look at this one, so let's pop it out of the box and check it out. So here is our Pteranodon, and I will say it kind of looks a little better out of the box than originally I was expecting, but still kind of rough. Doesn't really look so great. I mean, the absolute lack of detail is the biggest problem straight away, but proportion-wise, again, you can see how terrible it is. Like, those wings look really bad. They're very small compared to the way they should look, and just not so great when it comes to that. And in fact, the entire figure overall is a little bit of a disaster, I would say, but somehow still a little better than I was expecting, but just still not very good at the same time. So let's go ahead and jump to a closer look, and we'll check it out from there. So starting up here at the head sculpt of our Pteranodon, you can see again it looks very iffy. Like, we've got the beak sculpted out, we've got the crest sculpted out, but there's not really much at all in the way of skin texture. Like, you can see it's completely smoothed over, and scale, detail, things like that is completely non-existent. There's no pycnofibers, nothing like that on this. As you move it and you kind of let the light hit it, you can sort of make out some detail on it. I think maybe the original sculpt might have looked okay, but when they translated it over to this figure, not so much anymore. We do have the nostrils sculpted out. You can see the eyes painted with a red, given a white pupil, or maybe that's just a white spot to kind of insinuate eye shine. I'm not too sure. The Pteranodon overall is a brownish tone, but as you transition toward the tip of the beak, we do have a very dark brown tone, or even a black maybe. And on the underside, we have a yellow that transitions out there toward the beak. You do actually have an articulated jaw, and it can go super wide. Maybe not the best as far as that goes. It actually articulates pretty nicely, though, which is a plus. You can see that the inside of the mouth is painted with a pinkish tone. I guess that would be an attempt at maybe the tongue, or maybe just painting the entire inside of the mouth with a pink. There's no coloration on the inside of the mouth on the upper side, though. One thing that is a plus is I don't see teeth sculpted on this one, which is something we would always see on the Mattel versions. But I am impressed with how, like, very sturdy and well done the articulated jaw is. As you lead up here into the crest of the pterosaur, you can see we again transition to a darker tone up there. As you move back here into the back of our Pteranodon, though, again, the detailing is pretty close to non-existent. You can see it when you let the light hit it, but there's really not a whole lot going on. Definitely not much when it comes to skin texture. You do have a very ugly button here on the back, which is going to give us our action feature, which as you would expect, would be the wings flapping. Again, I wouldn't really expect anything less for a Pteranodon. But as you move back out here into the wings, there is some okay looking paintwork up here. Like, I like the fact that they've kind of outlined the wings with this darker tone, and they've applied it with an airbrush, so it's kind of smooth as far as that application goes, leading all the way out here into the hands. And you can see, like, we darken the arm entirely as you lead out there. And as you lead down into the actual, skin of the wings, you can see that kind of looks okay in certain areas, but also kind of generic at the same time. But again, not much in the way of really fine detail. Like, there's no actual, fine skin texture or anything, just basically like some kind of creases and stuff as you move through. We do have this very strange coloration to it, though, almost looking like flames. It kind of looks like our Pteranodon's on fire as we lead along, as we've got like a squiggly red and then a squiggly yellow underneath, and that does run the entire way out there onto the wing. You do have the ability to articulate the wings right here in the center, and that is, again, very Mattel Jurassic World like, but that kind of gives you the ability to make it look like the Pteranodon is like diving down into the water or something, or just soaring, which it's basically doing now, which is a plus. You see the same thing as far as the wings go over here on this side as well. And then as you lead down into the lower part of the body, there's a very ugly seam right here, and you can see the detailing almost picks up slightly as you move down into the legs, but not a whole lot. You can see we do have webbed toes for our Pteranodon, and you can also see the toes themselves are kind of okay as far as the sculpt goes. No paintwork for the nails, though. You can see the nails are present, but just no actual paintwork for that area. As you move along the underside, again, pretty much the same look as what we had on the upper side. We do have screw holes down here. 5 of them somehow they've managed to cram into the underside of a Pteranodon, which is actually kind of impressive. It was almost like they were trying to find out how many they could put under here. But as you move out into the underside of the wings, you can see that there's like a light gray and then almost like lightning down here. So I guess the undersides of the wings kind of had some lightning occurring, and then they lit the upper sides of the wings on fire. That's what I'm just going to go with. You can also see the area where the wing articulates is as obvious as it gets. It's super, super obvious and fairly ugly. But as you move out, again, not a whole lot when it comes to detailing or anything. And the paintwork is lackluster, I guess you could say, pretty much to say the least. And then you move back up toward the beak. The other thing that I really don't like is how thick the wings actually are. Like, right here specifically, it's just super hideous when you look at it from the front. Like, there's just no saving that. So, overall, I definitely can't say that this is Takara Tomy's best work, and I would say maybe their worst figure yet. As far as the size goes, for our Pteranodon, lengthwise, you're looking at right around 8 inches or 20 centimeters in length. And then if you go for a wingspan, about the... Let's try to get this in a spot where I'm on the tip of the wing over to here. So about 12¼ inches or around 31 centimeters. For a size comparison, there is Mr. Papo T-Rex, the Attack Pack Colovosaurus, Robert Muldoon in the Collect A Human Being next to our Takara Tomy Pteranodon. And you can see it does have a fairly decent size to it. Not huge, but it's also not small, and obviously is way bigger than your average Takara Tomy Pteranodon, that is for sure. But for another comparison, we have a Mattel Velociraptor and Dilophosaurus stepping in here next to the Pteranodon to try to give you at least a little bit more of an idea of the size. But then for the size comparison that I think will help the most, here is your average Mattel Pteranodon, or like your Rorovore size range, like the bigger version that they had released. It's not the biggest, as obviously the biggest would be either the, I would think maybe the Amber Collection version, or it would be the basic version. Those might be the biggest. I don't know. It's been a little while since I've actually taken a look at either of those. But when it comes to, again, like your Rorovore size range Pteranodon, you can really see that, again, the size is a whole lot more massive, at the very least in the wingspan of the Mattel version compared to the Takara Tomy version. Like, it's night and day when it comes to actually trying to get the proportions at least a little bit better, and Mattel isn't normally the best at proportions, but they did a great job, I think, on their Pteranodon, which you can see, again, massive difference in size between these two when it comes to at least the wingspan. The body itself is kind of similar. It's just the wingspan that's really different. You can also see how much better the Mattel version looks as far as the fine detail goes in comparison to the Takara Tomy version, which just looks incredibly, incredibly childish. But again, not the best angle, but you can get a better look again as far as how they look from up here as well. So, obviously not Takara Tomy's best work. So this brand new Takara Tomy articulated Pteranodon is not so great. Honestly, it's probably the worst Takara Tomy figure I think I've ever seen. The sculpt is just so bad. Like, everything about it is really rough. The body isn't, very good. The fine detail isn't very good. The proportions are off so bad. The head is huge. The wings are so small. Everything just looks as awkward as it could possibly get on this Pteranodon. And maybe you could try to save it a little bit if it had really impressive fine detail, but it doesn't. It doesn't really have much of anything when it comes to the fine detail. For the most part, the body's smoothed over. We don't really have pycnofibers, scale detail, like not really anything going on. When you let the light hit it from certain angles, you can kind of make out some detail, but it is incredibly lackluster. The detail out on the wings is a little bit better, but not by much. The overall paintwork of it is also pretty terrible. I'm really not a big fan of that sort of ugly coloration they have on the wings where it looks like fire. I'm really not a fan of the coloration on the underside of the wings where it looks like lightning. And on top of that, the articulation is okay. Like, the articulated jaw works really nicely, and the wings do move nicely. Like, the action feature does work pretty decently, but the button is as obnoxious as it gets, just like it was on the last two dinosaurs. And overall, again, I think they just did not try nearly as hard as they probably should, and definitely didn't give us their best effort when it comes to this figure or any of the previous ones. I think Takara Tomy has so much promise, and I'm not saying these things about this figure because I really love trash-talking companies or anyone's hard work. That is definitely not the case. I say these things because I hope that if somehow, for some crazy reason, Takara Tomy actually sees this video, they'll see these problems and then think, well, maybe we should help and correct that and maybe make it better for the next time. I don't know if that'll happen, probably not, but one thing is for sure, this line they are working on could be cool, but it has a whole lot of work to get there. If you are interested in this, I don't know if I can find this yet. I'm pretty sure it's fairly new. I will try to find a link to give you guys, but I'm not 100% sure if I can. Regardless, I don't really think it's worth picking up in the first place, so if you are interested, if you can find it again, grab it if you want it, I guess, but I don't really recommend it. Either way, let me know what you guys think in the comments section, and like and subscribe, and I will see you in the next review. Thanks for watching.